Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is gonna be a battle report of the Warriors of the Dark Gods versus Orcs and Goblins. It's gonna be one of the practice games that I played at our practice day here in February in the Netherlands. This is gonna be my list for this game. So I have a Chosen Lord on a Wasteland Dragon with Sloth. I have a very concise magic phase with a Wizard on Alchemy, Wizard Adept with the Book of Arcane Mastery and the Rod of Battle. Then I have Warriors with the Relentless Company, they have Pride, and then I have double Barbarians with throwing weapons 3 times, Chosen with Sloth, and 2 Helmors. Then for my opponent, he is playing Orcs and Goblins. He does have a mix of Orcs and Goblins. That's something that you don't necessarily see nowadays, with the mono armies also being quite viable. But just let's get into it. He has an Orc Shaman, Wizard Master Thaumaturgy, Wizard Adept Shamanism. He has a Warlord who is quite beefy with Shieldbreaker. He has obviously an Iron Orc Loner, because why wouldn't you play this guy in the current book? And then basically he goes for the big unit of Farlocks, unit of Goblin Rebel with Poison Spear and Shield, which was quite nifty, I would say. The Veteran Orc Marauders, I think they're quite a staple of the army book. Iron Orcs, I'm not too convinced about, especially with the price tag. And then still a couple of Nash Dashes in there. So let's go to deployment. Yeah, first of all, obviously my army with the double Helmor is quite a special army in terms of mobility and how it plays on the table. And for this practice day, we also tried out the new deployment, some of the new deployment scenarios. So we had one where you cannot deploy anything within 6 inches of the sides of the table, making it much more difficult to corner for armies like Dwarves or the Empire. And also, if you drop your first unit, when you drop your first unit, you have to decide whether you're going to do alternating drops for the rest of the entire deployment, or whether you drop everything to go first. And that is also quite a it's quite a substantial change to like the 1-2 drop mechanic and then dropping everything. Even though a lot of players do have the mindset of dropping everything just for first turn. Me not counted towards that generally, but I must say with the Elmos it is sometimes in matchups quite appealing to just drop the warriors somewhere in the middle of the board with the Relentless, drop the dragon somewhere that I can easily get to a nice place, and then I have 2 portals where I can still teleport 2 units of Chosen to for maximum pressure on turn 2 for my opponent. Works mostly with this list against lists that don't have any Vanguard, because the Vanguarding units, they can still go stand on my tokens, and that is less advantageous for me. So yeah, the deployment for me, left to right, I have Barbarians with throwing weapons, a Helmor, Chosen with great weapons, Chosen with halberds, the Pride Warriors with Relentless, unit of Barbarians with the Wizard, and the Chosen Lord on the Dragon, Wasteland Torch, Barbarians, or Chosen, probably behind my face in the recording, and then I have my Helmor here on the right. My opponent, 6 Marauder, Veteran, Orc, things. Great Green Idol, Huntsman Spider character, the Spears with Poison, Iron Orcs, Nash and Dashers. These Grotlings are still going to go in front of the Spider over here. Feral Orc Horde, the Loner, and then some Nash and Dashers, and still some Goblin Reavers, I think. His Warlord is in the Iron Orcs, his Thaumaturgy Mage in the Frenzy Orcs, I think. But I would not be that sure, to be honest. My first turn. So basically, what I am thinking is, one-on-one I can take his units. Like if I have a matchup where I come against his units with my units of Chosen, one-on-one I can beat any of them pretty much. The Iron Orcs, I would prefer to have 2 units that go into the Iron Orcs, or I would prefer to have a situation where there's nothing else on the board, being in the same combat at the same time, or in a different combat at the same time, so that I don't trigger his brute rivalry. extra attacks. Now, what is the pressure here? Basically, my opponent doesn't have the ranged pressure to threaten me that much. Like, he's not going to remove that many chosen before I get to engage. So basically, time is not really that critical, so I can take my time to just first remove some support and then later go in for the bigger blocks. What I was curious about is how the dragon will fare against the big block of Iron Orcs, because them having strength 7 is, or strength 6 actually, I think, is quite dangerous for the dragon. I mean, he does wound me only on a 5-up in prolonged combat because of Sloth from the dragon, but still any wound that he's going to do is going to go through, and that can be quite dicey sometimes. So I just wanted to see the matchup really. Otherwise, what do? I have the barbarians here on the flank because we played this scenario where you have a mix of breakthrough and capture the flag. So it's break the flags, yes. So at the end of the game, you count how many scoring units you have in the deployment of the opponent and how many scoring units of the opponent that you removed. And like the mix of that gives you the score for the objective, and then the person with the highest score wins the objective. So I was quite enthusiastic to just get my barbarians in there, maybe through a portal as well, but I also wanted to just hold off the flank for my opponent to not enable him to go over my flank. What else do we have? So I am setting up my warriors for a relentless move to the next turn so that they can just cram up something, hold out for a turn, and then allow me to do some counter charges in my turn. Here on this side, I know that he can block me chaff-wise with his reavers. However, I will have 2 gigantic models that cause terror on the charge, so I can choose which one I would like to direct the charge against these guys to just basically clean up the field in front of my chosen, so my chosen can proceed. And as you see, first turn I do manage to put 2 more portals down. Portal placement is quite a big thing if you play Helmholtz. So for the deployment, I get 2 portals at the start of the game. The reason I put them in these places is that my opponent has a Vanguard unit. If he Vanguards on top of the portal to block me out, then in this situation he cannot even, because it's more than 12 inches away from his deployment. In this situation he could, but then I have the dragon that can immediately first turn issue a charge onto my opponent's unit, and they're not likely going to be in discipline range. So, I mean, I don't know if it's really good to negate the advance for my dragon for 1 turn, but there's the option of chasing away the chaff, and I can also do it with the Helm or the chosen if I deploy a bit different. The other 2 tokens, so this guy on the left put the one here in the middle. I figured it was nice to be able to chaff up the Iron Orcs at some point if I need to. And the one here on the flank by the other Helmor is basically in a place where I draw out the Nash Dashers of my opponent. Doesn't really matter if I put it here or if I put it further away, so I want it to be as close as possible really, so that my opponent doesn't have to wait the chance still to put the Feral Orcs on, but I will guaranteed get a charge on the Feral Orcs if I teleport through. I think that's more or less it. Then the Warriors of the Dark Gods turn 2. So this is after my opponent's moved. My opponent was very passive in this game, during his first turn at least. So basically he just moved back a bit. He cast Trial of Fate on the dragon that I tried to dispel. Then he inflicted 1 hit, which knocked off the Weird Stone. And otherwise he mostly stayed put. But it's also, so from my opponent's perspective, if you face off against his army, I would have to turn around the picture. But like these veteran orcs, I put these guys at a distance where it was quite far. I think it's, you can see the lines. There's a line here, that's 12, so it's 16, 17 inches. I guess it's 17, maybe 18 inches for the spider and these guys. So basically, if he doesn't call the war cry, then it's gonna be a 9 or a 10 for these guys to get in there, which means that one of them will likely go in and the other will not. So that is quite a risky charge. And even then, if they both go into my great weapon chosen, I don't think I'm that concerned about it. And I also try to just block out his possible hiding places with the veteran orcs. So that is basically a little bit blocked. However, he does have the Grotlings to chop me up a bit. Poison Spears in this matchup specifically are not that useful. However, he's going to have 3 Goktuk Initiates. That might be a bit more useful. He's going to have 9 attack, strength 4 with poison. Poison is going to be my bane. Great Green Idol. Yeah, the Great Green Idol can be a decent matchup for Chosen, however, not for the Great Weapon ones, I think. Does it really matter? Don't remember if it's Resilience 7 or 8. If it's 7, then it makes a big difference. But and the rest of the army is quite blocky, actually. So once he just puts it down and he doesn't have that much mobility or flexibility in what he puts down where, it's pretty much set to go, right? And the loner can still do some tricks if your opponent allows it, but if you face off against the Chosen Lord on a dragon, the loner is not going to do that much. So the loner obviously goes back a bit. The Nash Dashers, they go back to a place where they actually block off. Well, they don't block off the teleport, but they are ready for a counter charge. I don't know if I understood why this was his move, because basically if he goes onto the portal, I think he was too scared of the damage. It's 2d3 toxic hits, so that's on average 2 dead Nash Dashers. I wouldn't really be bothered about that, I think. Especially in a matchup like this, where the Chosen, they strike at the same time, I believe, as the Nash Dashers. You're not going to do that much damage to Chosen. So you will have 15 attack, sitting on 4+, wounding on 4+. It's like 4 wounds. If that is the only damage that I get with my Chosen, then I'm quite fine with it. And if then 2 of the Nash Dashers blow up, then you're going to have 2 attacks less. I think my opponent should have gone on the portal to give me less options, probably. But hey, I'm not playing the game there. So what is happening between my turn and his turn? So these Chosen here are at quite a distance of the Goblins. However, I did make a charge, and I do make it actually. That was quite a high roll. I was quite surprised that happened. But this also meant that the plan for the rest of my turn kind of changed. So I was quite happy with my portal, able to block off the Iron Orc movement, because this move really means that, well, probably this turn I'm not going to get free of the Goblins because I will not do enough damage. Next turn I might do enough damage, and then I'll get free unless my opponent charges in the Great Green Idol on the side. Then he also has to charge away these 2 units into my Chosen, which is quite an investment because honestly they're just going to die in the grind, at least if I stick around on my steadfast. So if he does less than 9 wounds on the charge, I'm quite guaranteed to stick. He has to do the wounds against Resilience 5, hitting on a 4+. It's going to be a struggle to get everything through there, and then still he has to win the combat as well. But if he does like 10 wins, then he will probably win the combat. So basically this situation, I could also have handled it differently, but what I did was to block off my opposing Iron Orcs with the Barbarians, move up the Bright Warriors with the Relentless banner, and then move up the Dragon ready for a charge into the Iron Orcs. Because I was expecting that my opponent would charge the Barbarians, and in that case he would either overrun there and then possibly get these chosen into his front and the dragon into his side, or he would just stay where he was and then I could still throw in the dragon. Because I was not expecting him to charge me with the ferals if he would make his frenzy test. But yeah, we will see what happens. As a good measure, I put the big word of iron on the warriors with the first cast, I believe, and then, or no, I first tried for the battle. My opponent gave it to me. Then I was like, okay, I'll also put word of iron on it just to be sure. And then, well, basically they got to a 1-up armor save. Good stuff. But my opponent was more scared of stuff like Quicksilver Lash, which I can imagine because the Iron Orc Loner is quite an appealing target. Also for the Hellfire from the Barbarians with Ghostly Guard. I can't really see. Oh, my wizard is over here, so I don't know what else. Maybe I cast Quicksilver Lash on this guy or something. That could be, or the Silver Spike probably. Yeah, so portal-wise I did a teleport here, and then otherwise I teleported the Great Weapon Warriors. No, I just moved them. I think... Oh, I moved the token from here to over here. Just to be a bit better positioned. Then we go to Orcs and Goblins turn 2. So my opponent does go for the charge onto the Chosen. My opponent actually stuck around here with the Goblins. So this is one of these things. Like, we did this entire combat, me striking at the Goblins, he striking back, calculating out the combat rest, etc., doing the break test, and then my opponent was like, oh, I actually don't have any units anymore where I can deploy my Goktuk initiates, so do you mind if we redo this entire combat? And I was like, yeah, sure, man, we have enough time on the clock and whatever, and it's a practice game, and we should actually, it's the most logical thing to do. But, oh my god, come on, please. Like, these are signs maybe that the book is too complicated. It's not that in itself is too complicated, but just a mixture also of like minimize discipline tests, but only for break tests, panic tests, but not for fear test or something, and not for friends. There's too much going on in every single lab now. I feel like the game has gotten a bit too complex to be able to get a good speed going and to remember stuff like deploying your Goktuk neophytes. Anyway, so back to the game. So we were talking about how these Chosen were being charged, these Chosen being charged. The Barbarians also took a charge in the face. My opponent decided not to charge with the Feral Orcs. I think he must have passed the frenzy test there as well. He did go in with the... or he just blocked me, I believe with the Loner. So yeah, I'm just standing there, and next turn I'll probably go in. But basically my plan came to fruition where I can get my charge off next turn with the Dragon. And then maybe I can just go in here, overrun into the Iron Orcs or the Feral Orcs eventually. But nice thing about the Helm Horse is that these kind of models don't bother me that much anymore, because I can just teleport my Chosen to over here or anywhere else. In combat, the ensuing combat, my Chosen bite the dust. I know, here in this case we are not in contact yet, because I did an overrun. No, I'm just a bit confused. So yeah, my Chosen, they actually break from combat. So the first time we rolled this, before my opponent deployed the neophytes, I killed like 20 goblins probably. And I won combat by like 10, and then he was like, oh, I'll actually deploy these guys in there. And then in the end he won combat by like 3 or something. Mostly because my Chosen did like 5 hits. So I did 6 attacks on one neophyte or headhunter or whatever it's called. 6 attacks on one of them, 6 attacks on the other, and the rest on the unit. And I did 2 wounds to one headhunter and 1 wound to the other, which was kind of disappointing. And then they smacked too many chosen, and then well, I lost the unit of chosen, but that's fine. The other chosen, they did get there, or at least quite some wounds. I don't know if I think I held on steadfast, and the next turn my opponent chopped off an extra wound. But in the end, I managed to clean up the marauders. Dragon went in. I got Smite the Unbeliever from my opponent, but I also got a small word of iron. But yeah, basically his wizard adept was in there, his general is in there, and in his turn, I don't know, this is probably my turn, but in his turn he's going to countercharge also with the other wizard. Basically trying to make it longer lasting or something, but I'm just racking up trophy rack kills here. So combat rest wise, I'm doing quite fine. Because I get the character, I get the maximum overkill. Kingslayer is a really cool item in this case, because I got to like 8 attack strength, whatever. Yeah, and then just the option of making it divine, etc. It's really good. The chosen, they teleport, as I said. These guys went in, and my opponent's ferals are just basically blocked by basically his own units. I think with Orcs and Goblins, the way to go is to just go for a bit more mobile stuff, and also fleeing Goblins. But like the fast cav, I'm not really convinced for the Goblins because the footprint's too big. But just the normal units of Goblins of 20, they have like similar footprint, I know, but they're like 20 guys, so I think it's quite a workable book. Anyway, we go to Warriors of the Dark Gods turn 4. As you can see, by the way, the previous picture already, I swapped out the Helmals because it was more convenient that way. I am working on a new model to replace this humongous elephant, so it's a bit more toned down, because also for transport this is just a bit inconvenient. So by now, eventually I ground through the Iron Orc Loner because I got Glory of Gold on my unit. So basically I start with AP1, I go to AP2 with Glory of Gold, I negate his Ghostly Guard, so he just has plate armor and a shield. It's going to be a 5-up save after everything. And I get 4-up to hit, 5-up to wound with a reroll. Don't know how many combat rounds we did, but eventually he died. And yeah, I'm just still grinding down on the Iron Orcs, and I also got into the Feral Orcs. Feral Orcs are good in the first round of combat, but in the later rounds of combat they just they disappear, because mostly also because of AP0. So from my 4-up save, I stay at my 4-up save. That's quite a big downside for him. I just kind of have to track now where my units are. So yeah, the Chosen, they mopped up the Firelords and they got teleported to here to block off the charge of the Great Green Idol into my dragon. The dragon, meanwhile, just kept on jumping through the Iron Orcs and the characters, issuing a duel every round, going up on the trophy rack kills. I think my opponent should have declined a bit more often, maybe even at the start, right? So I went in here, there was no other combat at the moment that I would have done this one, so then he would only have had, then he only had 8 attacks onto my dragon, well 7 attacks because one of them was the warlord that I could actually strike on for free if he declines the challenge, the duel. So then he would have, well, I would also kill the champion, because these orc champions strike too hard. Just let's be real, they strike too hard. But then, yeah, 7 attacks, hitting on 4+, wounding on 5+ would be a wound. In a wounded turn, it's not that bad, but then I also get to strike on the unit, obviously. So that is quite bad for him. I think, like duel-wise, what would be most interesting for me is to issue a duel, get it refused, select his warlord as the model that doesn't get to strike, and just go to town on the unit. Yeah, I think that is the best, because then, well, next round I could issue a duel again and just kill whatever gets thrown at me in the duel. Or the unit just gets diminished quite rapidly. Mostly also because of Kingslayer again. The extra attacks, the extra strength, the extra AP. It does really help. And also Thunderstomp on the unit, Breath Attack on the unit. It all does really help. And then, yeah, if my opponent only will have 7 attacks, the 1 win per turn is bearable. But if he gets the extra attacks, then it becomes a little bit more iffy. I think I can generally handle a unit of Iron Ox with my dragon. But I mean, ideally I would like to have a unit of Chosen in the flank of them, but that is quite obvious, I guess. So anyway, we were at the moment where eventually all of the Iron Ox were gone, and my opponent basically only has the Great Green Idol left that I just wanted to ignore for the entire game, which I did manage. So the reroll 1 to wound is something that keeps coming at you with the Great Green Idol. So at the end of the game, I still have my dragon left. Yeah, quite healthily, to be honest. I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4 wounds on him, so he has 2 wounds left. We have the warriors left, a unit of Chosen left, another unit of Chosen left, 2 Helmos left. We have a unit of barbarians with the wizard, with the wasteland door, or with the icon of the infinite, chasing off some goblins. So I lost a unit of barbarians and I lost 1 unit against the goblins, which makes it a 20-0 for the warriors of the Dark Gods. So just a couple of things about my list. Every time I play this game with this list, at the end of the battle I look at what is on the table and I'm like, yeah, I still have like 3 Chosen left from this 1 unit, so you don't get anything for that. And yeah, these Chosen, there are like still 4 guys, so that was fine as well. And the Lord, yeah, he still has 2 wounds, so that's fine. It's a list where you really have to go for a complete annihilation of units, but I can teleport damaged units away. That's just amazing. It's units that are fearless, that you can just teleport out of the way if it's inconvenient. Because even if there's 5 Chosen left, right? So imagine that this unit gets annihilated, there's 5 Chosen left. My opponent has some threats that could, in principle, mop up this unit. I can just go with the Elmo over here, bring them back a bit, teleport them over here to a place where 5 Chosen are still plenty to just threaten his lines, and that really makes the list work. You don't need the movement, mostly also because of the dragon. The dragon really helps in this list, so it's definitely gonna stay in. Yeah, that's the game. Hope you enjoyed the report, and I will see you then next time.